All right. Good morning, folks. Happy Mother's Day, and welcome to the Sunday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Broadcasting from a non-disclosed remote location, so I'm going to check in with Cam. Good morning, Cam. How are we coming in? Good. Everything's good. All right. So everything stays the same as usual, folks. 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Of course, we have our text line at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Don't forget that we are live streaming on the TuneIn app, so be sure to punch in WCRN on the TuneIn app. And if you don't have it, it really does take just seconds to download and take us anywhere. And hit that like button or the favorite so that it's right there whenever you need us 24/7, WCRN. Especially that overnight, right? North Star Music of the Night. I fall asleep to that every night. Put on a timer. It's a great way to go to sleep. All right. Great Sunday morning talk block. Mike Wade joins us at 7 o'clock. Peter Blute at 9 o'clock. Jerry Doherty will check in around 9:30. And happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. Mother's Day, right? It's a big day. Was it flowers? I think it's behind Easter. I don't know what the stats are. Point is, it's Mother's Day, so enjoy it. Unfortunately, my mom has passed, so I usually do something for the sisters who all have children, and they're probably going to be some husbands, sons, stopping at the gas station or the Stop and Shop today to get some flowers and get them over there. Right? I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right, 508-871-7000. We have a lot to talk about. On Friday's edition, I was getting into the situation with SCOTUS and this leak. And again, I see people are freaking out, right? And it's funny because there's two things going on, right? Two big things in the news going on right now. There's a leaked draft, which as far as I'm concerned is equal to a doodle that was done by a justice back in February. And you've got Elon Musk, who is purchasing Twitter. Hasn't purchased Twitter, and that draft hasn't officially been released as a decision, right? So we have two things that haven't happened, but the left are losing their collective minds over. Think about it. He hasn't actually bought it. He filed the paperwork and registered his intent, like you're supposed to do these things. He's securing financing and backup for the $44 billion purchase. So they're freaking out about something that hasn't happened. And even if it does happen, there's no evidence whatsoever that anything really will change, except for he's saying there'll be more truth, more even speech, right? So are they really freaking out over the prospect that free speech might take a foothold in this nation? That everybody will have a voice, and that if you have a position, you're allowed to defend it. Here's the thing, right? And this is what we seem to be teaching our students, our young people, and what we adults are looking at saying, what are you talking about? That's not how that works in America. Excuse me. It is, all he's saying is, look, we're going to do away with these algorithms and these turning down one side and suppressing. Because in school, in the college courses that you take and debates that you have, that the answer to speech you don't like is not suppression or silencing the other side. It is more speech, more talk. And if you aren't confident in your position, if you don't believe what you say, you probably can't defend it. It's usually how that works. So if you're one of these people who just regurgitates the talking points that they heard, if you're challenged on any of those talking points, you're going to crumble like a cheap suit because they're not your thoughts. They're not your arguments. But if it is what you believe, you understand what you're saying, you get it, it's part of your core value, you really do believe in what you're saying, you should welcome any opportunity to debate this. You should welcome that opportunity. Because your goal there is to lay your argument out and explain to the person who, in your mind, doesn't get it. You see what I mean? They don't get it. You're thinking, how do they not get this? So let me lead them to it. Let me put the path out there. I'll hold their hand. I'll walk them through my argument point by point. Maybe they're, ignorant in one particular part of history or facts or law or I don't know, something. And once you enlighten them to that, maybe they'll get to the same conclusion you get, or you got to it at some point. And therefore, it stops being something that they just have heard, and that's their position. And if you don't agree with it, you need to be silenced. That's the part that always gets me. I remember back in when beginning of 2016, when Donald Trump came down the escalator at his building in New York, and the youngest of us in my family, who's a very, very left, was so upset about this. Now, I don't know why she was upset about it. It's not like Donald Trump had yet really got out there and told about his policies and so forth. And if you listen to the policies of Donald Trump, not knowing it was Donald Trump, but you were in a focus group and they had policies and executive orders and decisions that were being made, laid out on the table in writing, not sourcing it and talking about it. Boy, that would be such an interesting focus group, because I bet most people, most common sense, average American citizens would look at this, including people who happen to be left, and would probably say, well, this all makes sense. It's pretty good stuff. Because despite his personality and so forth, he had great policies. And we have Mayorkas in administration right now who's trying to tell us that they inherited a mess at the board, right? The crisis at the border. No, you didn't. And they say this to us and talk to us like we are simpletons, and we're going to believe the Ministry of Truth when they rewrite the history. When in fact, what happened is the most secure border in decades was in place when Joe Biden took office. The stay in Mexico policy was in place. They were cracking down, and they were really cracking down on Mexico, telling them, you're letting people flood your southern border. You do nothing, even though you have Mexico, folks, has some of the most strictest immigration laws in the world, right? But they don't enforce them on their southern border because they know these people are pretty much just passing through. They're not setting up shop in Mexico. And they allowed that. So Trump used the awesome power of the United States. For one, is the trade. Mexico needs the United States to trade. They need us to buy their goods and import their goods. And he told them, you need to stop that. So Mexico beefed up their southern border security. They went along with the wait in Mexico. And some people, I've gotten texts and people in conversations that said, we can't just tell people they have to wait in Mexico if they're coming here. Why do they have to wait in Mexico? Well, the thing on that, folks, is if you're seeking asylum, it's international common courtesy. It's the way it works. I don't know if it's actually law, but the point is, if you seek asylum, it's understood that you receive it, or when you receive it at the first port of call, at the first port you enter, meaning an entrance point into a country, that grants you asylum, that allows you to enter their country because you're fleeing something. And that's what asylum is, right? You need to prove or demonstrate that you have fled persecution or a war torn nation or far reaching famine or whatever it is. That's your argument for asylum, to be safe somewhere. And America loves to rescue people. We always do it. Hurricane over here, tsunami over there, unjustified invasion of sovereign borders to a nation, billions and billions of dollars in equipment and supplies are on the way. That's who we are. That's what Americans do. But when you come to this country and you say, I'm seeking asylum, you need to demonstrate that you're fleeing for a reason, that there's something there, right? And we have a hearing with a judge, an immigration judge, whose purpose is to hear this. Well, only 13% of those cases ever heard are adjudicated in favor of that person seeking it. So the question then becomes, if you're already in Mexico, if you already went 2 or 3 countries and you were perfectly fine, you left where you were fleeing from, and you're not in trouble, then why are you seeking asylum here? And I'm sorry, my alarm is going off for some reason. Why are you seeking asylum here? You already had safety at some point. You already had it in that, and you could have stayed in Mexico. So for us to say, no, Mexico, you're perfectly fine. You can stay right there. When your time comes up, you'll have your hearing. If for some reason, even though you're safe, we feel that it's best that you be let into the country, you will be. But only 13% of those are done that way. And if not, you're rejected and you stay where you are. But I believe we have to take a break, Cam, right? Are we up for a break, or are we going straight through? I can do either. So, well, if it's up to me, then I might as well go to the phones. 508-871-7000. Hey, folks, I don't think I had mentioned, even though I'm broadcasting from remote location, from auxiliary studio, we're still streaming on my social media platforms, right? So Facebook and Twitter, Joe Mangi, Mangi, Joe Mangi Show. That's how you get onto that. Please also follow that on your social media. I appreciate it. YouTube channel is, guess what it's called? The Joe Mangiacotti Show. Isn't that fascinating? My LinkedIn page, and then over at Twitch TV, we're just Joe M Show. So you can check it out and listen via the stream that way as well. All right, let's go to the phones. 508-871-7000. We got Mark in Worcester. Good morning, sir. Happy Mother's Day to you and yours, and you look marvelous. Excellent. Oh, big time. You're being very polite by putting it that way. It's Mother's Day, Mark. We'll be polite. It's early in the morning. There you go. Yep. Germany. Yep. Good question. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And it's one of those things. I don't think they're looking that. I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think they're looking very hard for this person. Hmm. Well, it always comes down to the one thing that we have still is the ballot box, our voter. But yeah, I know where you're going with that, Mark. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Always appreciate the call. Yes, folks. Okay. So let me take a sidetrack here for that because Mark brought up a good point. And naturally, my answer to this is we have nothing to do. We can't do anything. As an American and someone who was brought up, by a dad and a mom, especially dad, who was a Marine and a police officer, and he really believed in the American way, and he was quite a patriot. And you drove that into my sister's head growing up, and we were told over and over again what a great country is, as with all the flaws, right? With all of the corruption and flaws and mistakes that happen, my dad would always say, our form of government is a pretty horrible form of government, but it is the best on the planet. And that is why you have millions of people, and that's not without exaggeration, millions of people seeking to come here. And we process and allow over 1 million people to legally immigrate to the United States every year, the legal way. And we're going to have, it looks like we could have upwards of 2 million people illegally enter the country by the end of 2022. And so going to the ballot box is the way we, the people, govern. Because we're not a true democracy. If we were, we'd be voted, we'd all be in Twitter, right? It would be we'd all vote on our phones for every decision, every tax bill, and so forth. No, we are elective republic. We elect representatives, and that's where our power is, and that's the way the founding fathers created this. Right? They didn't want a king. Monarchy was not an option because they saw what absolute power does. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts. Right? And and that's what they wanted away. That's why we were going to have a president and these elected officials. So that's what we were taught. That's what we believe, that our power, and this is where we hire and fire the president of the United States and our Congress people. But as we know, it's not that simple, is it? It doesn't work that way. We don't really like to fire our congressman or our senator if you happen to even know who they are. I mean, that's a whole nother thing, right? The man on the street survey, just randomly stop somebody. Next time you're in a conversation with the mechanic or cocktail party, work it into the conversation. By the way, who's your congressman where you live? See what the percentage is that answer it. Maybe right now, because things are so political and hot, they might know. But it's amazing, right? So that is our power. Unfortunately, that's it. It's the ballot box. That's what we have to do. And if the ballot box is ever corrupted, we are not the United States of America that was founded. We're not the country we grew up in. And Mark made reference to 2,000 Mules. I talked about this last week. I don't know if it was a Wednesday show. It might have been Wednesdays. I forget which day it was. But I was making the point at that time that the leak of this document, and it's not a report, right? Because we hear that coming from them, right? Oh, the report is out. And Schumer said report. Even the president of the United States referred to it as a report. It's not a report, folks. It is a piece of stolen document or information from the United States government, and that is a crime, period. So the leak happened, and the timing of this is very suspicious. Since it was written back in February, you have to ask yourself, well, have they sat on this thing since February? Or was this just some kind of happenstance where the person who leaked it found this doodle, as far as I'm concerned? Because if it's not officially the decision and signed off by all the justices, or those that don't sign off, they issued the dissent decision. It's just a piece of paper. You might as well have been drawing Mickey Mouse on it for all I care, because it means nothing. But the idea that this is a decision that's being debated within SCOTUS is people losing their minds. So this was leaked, and you have to say, why now? Now, sure, your first instinct is, well, anything to get the attention off of this administration's complete and utter failures, from the southern border to the energy crisis, to the price of gas and diesel and heating fuel, right? To just everything. The inflation that is now precedent setting, it's breaking all kinds of records, even though wages, right? We have 11.5 million jobs available, and wages have gone up about 5%, but inflation is at 8.5%. So you have a net loss of losing money because your purchase power has diminished. Boy, the administration could really use a distraction. And that might be a big reason why it was released. But then I have to ask myself, because I was aware of 2,000 Mules, are they really, even though they're going to release this at some point, did they release it this particular week, this past week, because 2,000 Mules was coming out and they didn't want a lot of attention put onto this movie? And I talked about it, but I'll share it for maybe people who weren't listening to me the other day. Shame on you, but let that pass for now. It's Mother's Day. 2,000 Mules, Dinesh D'Souza, with cooperation of organizations and some grant money, made this movie. And it's called 2,000 Mules because they have 2,000 mules, and this is what they call people who did the actual dirty work, the actual stuffing of the ballots and so forth. And what they were able to do is they purchased data. And I talked about this before. It's a common practice for marketing companies, but even for myself, if you haven't picked it up over the years, you'll listen to, as I'm the radio detective, I'm a second generation PI. My family, I own and operate our family business, which is clandestine investigation of New England, and this is common practice in our industry. And as a licensed private investigator and bonded, and if you're or law enforcement, or if you're an insurance investigator, we're allowed to have access and purchase data services. And you can't do these services, you can't get access to as a civilian, for lack of a better way of saying it. So for me that have the data services I have, you have to go through all the whole process of proving who you are and that you're licensed and they're bonded, and they inspect your office. They literally come out and inspect to make sure you have the right filing system and a lock on your door, all this stuff. but you can buy data, and that's the most important thing. Now, we have to take a break because we're coming up to the bottom of the hour, but I'll finish this thought in about 2,000 Mules and how that works and why this is such a devastating movie to the left, and in particular to some pretty prominent people on the left. All right. Well, stick with us. Sunday morning, Mother's Day, Joe Mangiacotti Show here in AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Stick with us. We'll be back on the other side, folks. All right, folks, welcome back. All right, folks, welcome back to the Sunday edition, the Mother's Day edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here in AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, we are live streaming on the TuneIn app, so just please punch in WCRN and hit that favorite button. I'd like to see those click up. That's nice to watch. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. We're streaming on my social media platforms as well at Joe Mangi Show, MANGI. So check that out. We will go to the phones in a second. I just want to finish the thought I was going into the break, and that has to do, of course, with the movie 2000 Mules and Dinesh D'Souza, who has, well, we know his history and in trouble he's gotten into. So he worked with True the Vote, right? Now, True the Vote, they work obviously on voter fraud and monitoring voter fraud. Now, this is in theaters. You can go to 2000mules.com and check theaters, and it will tell you where you can find them, where they're playing. You can also buy the DVD and things like that. But the point is, so what they did and what I was setting up is that True the Vote, with some grant money they got, because it's not cheap. And I'm telling you this from a guy who has a business who has to buy these data subscriptions and so forth, right? I have to pay pretty hefty fees every month to have access to these databases. And you can just about get anything you want, right? I can, if I wanted to know where you've been, I can take your plate, pay for the data of this, and every single cruiser, right? All these police cruisers now are equipped with the cameras, the scanners. They call them plate scanners, and that's how a police officer knows when you drive by them on the highway or they're driving down the street and you're parked, that all of a sudden this thing's always on and it beeps up and it tells the officer driving the vehicle through their plate scanner equipment that, hey, you have outstanding parking tickets, and it immediately brings up the driver associated with that plate, and that might let them know that you're driving down the road, right? But you have 4 DUIs. Now all of a sudden that trooper or officer is going to pay attention to you, right? Or that there is you never paid your excise tax. You get where I'm going with that. So that data, though, think about that. Just thousands and thousands of plates are read every day by these plate scanners. Well, where does all that data go? I mean, after that happens, it's collected all day. Well, it's capped, folks. So if I wanted to get in, feeling for where you've been, I run your plate, and it's going to tell me all the places that a plate scanner picked up your plate, where you were parked, what road you were driving on. And then you add that they also take it from other videos. So whether you realize it or not, we are so far beyond George Orwell's 1984 as far as surveillance. So what they did is they bought the data of cell phones. They just bought this a massive amount of all of the cell phones that hit towers what they did, but from election day backwards to right before early voting started, right when they started dropping this new thing, right? The ballot boxes. We never had ballot boxes just dropped in neighborhoods, totally unattended. When that was happening, folks, if you listen to my show for any length of time, if you go back to the 2020 elections, I was losing my mind over the whole idea of something called ballot boxes being dropped. It made no sense whatsoever. The potential for fraud, as we are going to discuss in a second, is through the roof. Plus, it doesn't pass the sniff test, the common sense test. We've been voting for a couple of 100 years by going down to our local clerk's office or designated, right, the high school or some facility, and you got the volunteers and you got a paper ballot, hopefully, and this is how we did it. We had no need. I don't care we were in the middle of a pandemic. You didn't need ballot boxes. So they bought this database that was just millions and millions of cell phones and the pings, because when your phone is on, your smartphones, guys, you have granted the world, the organization, the governments, the private companies. When you sign, and sign up for your phone, and it's like more paperwork than a mortgage than you do at a closing, but you always just check all that stuff off to get through and get your phone up and running. It is pinging everywhere, okay? Pinging everywhere. So what they did is they bought this data and they just simply ran an algorithm, and they were able to geomark all of the ballot boxes that were placed out there. And they just simply in layman's terms, the way they did this in algorithms and computer speak, is they said every phone that was pinged by 10 of these boxes or more, pull those out and let us see who they are. 10 or more. Now, you could have said 3 or more, because if you go to the ballot box and you drop your vote in, your ballot in, and then you're walking by another one, well, maybe you're walking the dog and the dog is doing the business, or you stop to tie your shoe, you can argue that away. But the statistical improbability of somebody going to 10 drop boxes in a row in the middle of the night, you can't explain that one away, baby. It doesn't happen. So now this doesn't mean, right? So we've totally cut out the people who did 9 boxes or less, because they only asked for 10 or more. And they found 2,000 people, i.e. the mule, as they are called, because they're pretty much trafficking in an illegal substance, just like a mule would be coming from the cartels, right? They're called mules. Well, these are mules. They're trafficking in an illegal substance. So what they were able to do with this data, folks, is see who these people were, and then went to all of these Dropbox locations, which some of them had surveillance, but a lot didn't. And they pulled the surveillance. And they pulled the surveillance from the ATM across the street and the 7-Eleven with the camera. And they actually have video of these mules showing up at these drop boxes, one after the other, and taking stacks and bags and boxes and just hundreds and hundreds of ballots, or thousands of ballots in some cases, and dropping them into the box. So you want your evidence of some voter misconduct and voter fraud? Believe me, kid, it's there. And the movie goes on to continue to connect the dots. There's video footage of ballots, boxes of ballots being taken out from under tables or brought in when voting was supposed to stop, and they continue running it. They've got video of clerks in the counting room taking a ballot and just standing there and running it through a voting machine, the same ballot over and over again. So there's no question. So this movie is, or should, blow your mind. And the argument when it came back to, oh, there's no voter fraud, folks, and we would point to a few examples of voter fraud. Of course there is. Look at this. This person's dead. They voted. This person voted in 2 places. Well, there's not a lot of voter fraud. Nothing that's going to change the election, so you shouldn't be upset about it. Well, this is enough to change the election. And the movie will outline why the states and locations that were chosen to stuff the ballot box, why they were chosen. And you'll see the connection that in the states where they had these Democratic governors and Secretary of States who just arbitrarily changed the election law, which you can't do, because in every one of the cases, right, the Constitution puts the elections onto the states, and the states, their legislature, they're the only branch or people who can change or govern the voting regulations. See where I'm going with this? So they piece this all together. So this is a devastating movie. It's a devastating movie. Now, I always ask the question with this: if you lay out and show all of the voter fraud and illegality that took place, and you clearly see that there is evidence, or irrefutable evidence, that people cheated in the 2020 election. Joe Biden did not get 82 million votes, the largest, because that mathematically doesn't add up. I've said this from day one of that election, folks. From the 30,000-foot view, you got to look down and go, things, this just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Where the number spiked and the number of people that voted, it doesn't make sense. And this movie lays out why it doesn't make sense and how they did it. So say it is. It's proven. We have it. Oh, you know what? There were it turned out, 1 million votes that were not Joe Biden's, and some was switched, and whatever. The end result is, let's say Joe Biden technically didn't win the number of votes he supposedly got, and that would have changed the electoral votes, et cetera, et cetera. Now what? What happens? Do you undo the presidency? Do you reinstall Donald Trump? Do you have the Senate vote on a new president? I mean, what do you do? How do we handle this? I don't know. Maybe you guys do. 508-871-7000. Join the conversation. 508-871-7000. Let's go to Ken and Bolton. I don't know if we're ready to do that. Kim, do we have Ken ready to go? Hey, Ken, there you are. Thank you. Are you doing anything special in your house or your home today? Right. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Sorry for your loss. It's tough. Okay. Nice. Yep. Yep. There you go. Where did I hear that before? Didn't Donald Trump used to say that? Winning, 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 right? Uh, awesome. Let's hear the answers. Everybody, pull up a pen and paper. Pay attention. Yes. It wouldn't be a. Yeah. It's an extremely important position, and I don't think a lot of people get. They say, "Oh, Secretary of State's right." They hand, no, no, no. We've had the same guy for decades, right? Galvin, he's a good guy. I met the guy years ago when I was running for an office for crying out loud. He's been around forever. Good guy, but there's a lot of power in that position. They don't just handle all of the corporations and filings and all of that, but I mean that's the part of government that's at the administration of the state. Right? There's so much that goes through his office, and they are in charge of the election statewide. So that is, Bill Galvin in Massachusetts, as Secretary of State. He is in charge of these elections, and that works in all the states. Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the thing on it.
motion, and that has an impact. Well, we need to do likewise.
Yeah. Here's the thing on drop boxes. I don't think they should exist. Period. You can't
Agree?
justify them to me on any way, shape, or form because you have all the options in the world. You can go to your voting place like you're supposed to. You can go down to the town clerk if you're early voting anytime you want. Once they start early voting, you can vote absentee. You make a request for the ballot. And I don't believe in this mass mailing of ballots too. That's also just a foundation for criminal enterprise. Period. So, A, I don't believe in the drop boxes at all. B, they are unsecured. I don't care if there's a camera there, right? If you don't have an official poll worker or a police officer standing by that box 24/7 monitoring what goes into it, then anything in it should be absolutely irrelevant. It's trash as far as I'm concerned. But that's not how they did it. So why, under the guise of the pandemic, they created all of these new rules that make no sense in the normal world, but they used the opportunity of the pandemic while they were, shiny object over here, scaring everybody with COVID and vaccinations and so forth. And they put these rules into place without the authority to do that because why? Well, because they're not. It has to be done by the state legislature. The governor or the secretary of state just can't. Even though I just said that's a very powerful office. Hey, so is the presidency, but the president can't do things like a dictator either. Neither can a secretary of state. So first of all, we got to get rid of the whole concept of ballot boxes, and it passed in Massachusetts, or I don't know if it passed. According to Senator Moore, it was up there on doing drop boxes in the mass mail-in ballots. Now he's going to be on tomorrow because he wasn't on the first Monday, which he normally is, since I've gone to Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So he's on the second Monday. He will be on tomorrow. Will be politically speaking with Senator Mike Moore. And we can ask him about this. But this is the other part of this, Ken, is this is why the Democrats wanted to, while they still had all this power and they controlled the houses in the Oval Offices, they wanted to federalize the elections, right? With that, under the guise of the states. Think about that. They're accusing states of voter fraud and not handling it and being racist. That was the biggest thing, right? The voter laws are racist. So they're calling entire states and the governors of those states racist and criminals. So we need to federalize the elections. Well, why do you think they want their elections at the federal level? And they wanted to do it quickly because you always have to remember what happens when the other side, the other party, is in control of everything. And every time the left wants to federalize the elections and they want to put a truth czar, right? A misinformation governance board, executive director. Well, what if it was Donald Trump selecting that person? What would they do? Could you imagine if he put Don Jr. in as the executive director of that ridiculous do nothing board? So here are these rules that they've changed arbitrarily, and they put these in. So I don't think drop boxes should be allowed, and we should revolt against that. Absolutely.
Yes, but the form, Joe, the form of voting is literally get your iPhone out, picture them in the crime, and you distribute it everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what Dinesh D'Souza has done. So now we actually have laid out in this movie, folks, video. You can go through this thing and you can see the people. And remember what I said. The people that you're going to see are only people that did this at 10 of these boxes or more, because that's what they set the filter for, the algorithm for. So all of the mules that did 9 of them, you're not going to see, but you're going to see all these people who did 10 or more boxes. So there's some doing 15, 20 boxes, and they're responsible for stuffing tens of thousands of ballots into non-secure ballot boxes that are then later picked up, processed as if they were legitimate. If you're not pissed about this, I have no idea what in the world would make you upset. Think about that.
But the bottom line, Joe, is let's catch them at the act and distribute the information within hours instead of a year and a half hour deal after the election.
Mm-hmm. Well, in all fairness, right? We knew this stunk, right? We knew it didn't make sense from the day one beginning when they started changing the election laws. We're like, huh. And initially, a lot of us are like, okay, I don't like this. I know this isn't good, but how are they going to do it? Because that was the question, right? How are you going to do it? Because you can't really hack an election. You physically have to do this. Now, this is a point where these people, by the way, you talk about, oh, you're going to catch red-handed, right? And they're actually, in the video, will show it. They're wearing gloves. They're wearing gloves. I mean, they're making sure that there's nothing. Of course, they didn't think that anybody was going because the arrogance, right? We see this with Hillary Clinton and the FBI agents who are all corrupt, right? With the texts and emails that they sent to each other. They were so arrogant and insecure in believing that, they were going to be in power forever. And with a Hillary Clinton administration, there certainly wasn't going to be an investigation, and no one was even going to be looking for anything, much less investigating it. And so their arrogance in some of these cases helps us because they didn't cover their tracks as well as they should have, and they didn't destroy as much as they should have. So I get what you're saying, but when it all happened back in 2020, we knew it didn't feel right. We knew something was off. We didn't know exactly how they were going to do that, but they did it. And hey, what can we do about that?
But Joe, think about it. They exploited in 2020. Now, if you turn it around and stop them from doing it in the future, that takes away a lot of votes.
Yes.
And their power starts evaporating.
No, it's not. I mean, right now they have the House and technically, the Senate and the Oval Office, and that's why there's such a rush in all of this. Is who said it? I can't remember who. I'm going to kind of paraphrase right now, but Republicans, conservatives, when we win, not only do we have to win 50+1, we have to win 50+1 plus the corruption. You got to win in such a large, overwhelming number of people that you got to cover the spread. Let's put it that way, right? You got to cover the spread. What can I say?
But Joe, you assume that 2020 was that bad, and 2022 is going to be even worse. I don't. We get out there, we stop them.
I agree 100%. Now, can something happen here with this movie and this evidence? Is this going to end up resulting in a I don't know, a court having to hear it?
No, because it's after the fact. The bottom line is we need to collectively, everywhere, do our part. And then win November 8th. Don't worry about the past and spilled milk. Let's capture the future now.
I agree, but this would take an army of people going out there, and I think that there probably already is.
Exactly.
Okay, in other words, this True Vote organization. They've been doing their thing, and I mean, based on their webpage and everything, it sounds like they're constantly monitoring. You know what I'm saying? They're constantly monitoring the elections anyway. So do they change it into something?
The more we stop their cheating, the more winning for us.
So let's see. I'm going to look at I know there was a quote on this, but 2000 Mules, of course, director, writer, star is all Dinesh D'Souza. But Trump had I'm just trying to find the Trump quote, but I can't easily find it. But Ken, I got to hold you there because we've got other phone calls and we got a very little time left. Thank you for the call, and again, happy Mother's Day to you and your family, or to daughters and all that. And for those of us who are moms aren't with us anymore, it doesn't mean that we can't take a moment and talk to mom and remember her and all. 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Let's go to Rick in Cambridge. Hey, Rick, thanks for holding on, man. What's happening?
Clock.
Do we have time? I didn't get you, Cam. Cam, can we go to?
He's on.
Okay, good. Rick. Hey, Rick, we don't have a lot of time, so what's on your mind?
I'm gonna make this straight to the point. I agree with the last caller, but I see that the judges and Gavin in the state have to investigate this voter fraud. It's not going to get swept under the carpet. If it was the Italian mafia, they would be right after him, regardless if it was after the fact.
Yeah.
The crime has been committed. It's there to be seen. You can't hide it.
Yep.
The media has to show it. Channel 5 is going to be my mark. They are so biased. They need to come to the table and they need to be reckoned with.
I agree with you 100%. Rick. Yeah, Rick.
Because when they show a story,
Break.
they only show the first part.
Okay. Hey,
But when
Rick.
they're wrong,
Rick, I'm going to hold you there only because I can't control the time. But I'll tell you what, Mike Wade is coming up after 7 o'clock for Conservatively Speaking. You're welcome to stay on the line or call back because you can finish your thought. I can't control the clock, guys. We're running out of time here on the Sunday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. But it doesn't mean that the conversation stops. We keep going to noon with Mike Wade next, Peter Bluth after that. And I'm going to stick around with Mike for at least the first hour of Conservatively Speaking. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, wishing you and your family a happy Mother's Day on AM 830 WCRN. Hey, follow me at Joe Mangi Show. That's my handle, folks. Take care.
This is Full Service Radio, AM 830.
Hey, Joe, you got to